It is Thursday. RawMikeRichards.com. Coming at you, as they like to say, Dave, in the rock and roll days. Coming at you from the DKI studios in downtown Toronto. Huge day today. Really excited. In studio, the legendary Dennis Marouk. That's how I'm saying it. That's how I've always said it. He has certainly done it his way. He's written a book that talks about a very, I would say, not storybook life. The reason for the book. A lot of issues that he's going to explain when he comes in studio today about what was a stunning career, Dave. You know, I've got friends who that was their favorite player of the Capitals era. You know who you are. The Beaver Man. He's thrilled. Number 21. But it wasn't easy, and certainly life after hockey wasn't maybe what he thought it would be. So we'll have Dennis Marouk in studio. Also have an excellent and touching story of our good friends from DKI, just the kinds of sponsors that we have. A very moving story of the kinds of quality, and we're just very honored to be a part of that community, and community is what we'll talk about in what is a very tough time, certainly post Las Vegas, and in particular in Okotoks, Alberta. We'll explain why in just a short period of time. Major League Baseball, I would suggest Joe Girardi. Maybe Clark Judge doesn't want to hear this. Maybe some Yankee fans don't want to hear this. The reality is, Yankees still in it. And they might be in it to win it. And Cleveland, one of the hottest teams in all of Major League Baseball down the stretch, no longer there. The players seem to be playing for their manager. And we'll talk, I guess, further in depth about that, Dave. Are we surprised? I mean,
I'm surprised.
Yeah.
At the start of the year, I put a futures bet on Cleveland winning the American League, so I'm kind of disappointed because I got them at 6. So,
a 6?
Yeah. Well, that was also a bet in April. So I waited a while to be let down, but the Cleveland Indians came through once again, and
hurt you.
Yeah.
You mean, and just Cleveland in general hurting people in professional sports.
What a crappy city, anyways.
Except for the NBA.
Except for the NBA.
Except for LeBron and friends.
Don't worry, that's going to end soon.
Yeah. It's a good thing you're not bitter. I just
expiry. What is it? 1 year, and then LeBron goes.
So as we're seeing once again today, on the Dave Bastel side of things, the glass is half empty.
Oh, I got plenty more. We're doing Leafs next, aren't we?
Yes, we are doing the Maple Leafs next NHL last night, and it was I was a little surprised, to be honest. Maybe just maybe I got sucked in a little bit by the planning the parade, Dave. I had this nice parade all worked out. Normally, I had it finishing at Jilly's, a very famous landmark here in Toronto. Now gone because of the upper elite, younger hip crowd. The Bastles dining at the now fancy Broadview Hotel. Wasn't that when I was there? In fact, you're probably not eating what they're serving. Now, the Broadview Hotel, all swank and sexy. No, the old days, Jilly's was sexy, but in a really different way.
A different way. I can imagine that. Yeah. No, I recommend the Broadview Hotel. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it looks great. Yeah. Like, in all seriousness, it does look great.
It totally doesn't fit the area, though.
It's like, well, and when I went to school at Ryerson, that would have been so close. Like, I'm looking around at where I was, because I would have been closer, just probably, 2 blocks.
Okay.
Across from the Opera House.
Right.
On Queen Street. Queen Street East. That used to be, that was known for City TV. That's where it started.
Really?
Erica M. I could tell a story. And now, taking a look at the National Hockey League, Dave. So, are we surprised at what happened with the Leafs as the Devils, the Red Hot Devils, the Devils, they come in and apparently scoring is on their forte as well, and I wasn't expecting a game like that, but maybe the Leafs weren't either.
Well, you look at the Leafs' opposition so far this year, and the Devils would probably rank 4th out of the 4 teams, and they end up being the only one that actually beats the Maple Leafs. Anything can happen in the National Hockey League from a night-to-night basis, but you know what? It was a complete letdown, though, from the Leafs' perspective, because you look at that, and they allow 2 goals per period. Fred Anderson was not very good, and to tell the honest truth, he has had himself a couple nice periods so far, but a save percentage of 871 isn't going to do it. And I've been kind of telling you guys that from day one, that you need a goaltender that's pushing 930, 940 in that range. And right now, for my money, he's had one stellar game and a couple of lemons.
Like, and again, this is not, it's early, game number 4.
True.
But you have to understand that the guy between the pipes and the guy that you're going to pay that money for eventually, and I still think that term is valid, eventually, because if you're building the team in a way that says there's going to be a championship hoisted over your head, and you're looking at the current roster that you have, and you're a savvy hockey man, you're telling me then that person is going to turn to me and say, by the way, at least we don't have to touch the goal. Because that's just simply not true. That's not going to happen.
No,
you're going to look for someone who's considered either elite now, which is tougher, because I think that's the trick. You've got to find someone that is either on the fringe of that. Now, who do you consider that to be? Would Martin Jones fit into a category like that because of his age and his skill set moving forward? Is it a guy that maybe currently is playing in Europe? Is it a guy who's playing maybe for the London Knights? Like, it's hard to tell, but I would suggest in that latter statement I made, when you start talking about younger goaltenders, I still believe that you're looking at a guy who's probably late 20s, if we're looking at that particular category of the guy who's moving in, because early 30s tends to be the money mark.
It tends to be, and and goaltenders, just like defensemen, kind of age, start to get into their prime a little bit later on in their 20s. It's not the you don't see the young goaltender or the young defenseman blossom at age 18 and all of a sudden becomes this, and there are cases that does happen, and looking at guys like Drew Doughty and what Erik Karlsson did many years ago, but for the most part, that goaltender doesn't age properly until 27, 28. You're getting into that age group, though, with Frederik Andersen, and I'm just saying that 4 games in, the jury's still out if he can take you to the next spot.
Yeah, the resume says already at that point, Dave, whether you believe, and I'll look, that position I will liken to a quarterback. At a certain point, I will either say they're going to win you a Super Bowl, or they're going to be a solid quarterback, but you're not going to win a championship with that person.
That's right. And there's a lot of examples of it. Even if you're using the NFL example, Alex Smith has had that reputation almost since day one, where he's the first overall pick, potential, aging quarterback. Now with a very good offense in Kansas City, is he a game manager or is he a Super Bowl winning quarterback? We're about to find out, because
it's a tough place to be.
The Chiefs look really good right now, but we're in the middle of October and there's plenty more to go.
Which is why people take a look at Andy Dalton and go, is he going to win me a Super Bowl? He's in a terrible position because, for the most part, there is such a belief that he's not that guy. And yet, you look at the last 2-3 weeks, it's still a team game. Can you win a Super Bowl without a Hall of Fame quarterback?
Sure,
yes, you can.
Yeah,
absolutely you can.
Hashtag Trent Dilfer.
Well, you get a defense like that, just make sure, don't fumble, don't throw an interception, don't shit your pants, do something weird to it. Well, actually, maybe you can. As long as our guys keep stopping to run, then you can do what you want. But don't fumble and don't, as you said, just manage me that game and you win. And so for goalies, it's kind of the same way. But I would say in this day and age, it is not easy to win a Stanley Cup championship if your goalie isn't either in Vezina talks, you know what I mean? If there's not a conversation that he is top 5 guy, which I think. Do you think Crawford is a top 5 guy? Or was his team that good? Is he the one exception? Because he seems to get at times not a lot of respect.
I'll put Corey Crawford in the category of a Mike Vernon, a Chris Osgood, guys that you sit there and you go, is he part of that? Well, you know what? He has a fistful of rings.
Yeah,
he's doing something right, eh? But he's not your Marty Brodeurs or your Grant Fewers or that the Tom Barrassos.
But I don't think his contemporaries are Pekka Rinne. He's not Pekka Rinne.
No,
or Carey Price,
and if you're sitting there going, name me your top 5 goaltenders. Is he part of the mix? No. Well, I was just in a draft last week with a whole bunch of buddies. Corey Crawford went, and we chose 2 goalies each. He probably went around the 9-10 mark. Because you think Chicago's defense is going to help them get shutouts. Chicago's a pretty team. They're going to get wins. Corey Crawford come before a lot of these other guys? No, absolutely not.
Okay, we're going to talk Major League Baseball. Dennis Marouk and his entourage have moved in to the facility.
Fantastic.
Into the DKI studios. I see that.
Okay.
And so we're going to get to him. People keep saying number 21. We'll ask him. I mean, what does he get all the time? Beaverman. 21's going to be in. Okay, just take it easy.
21 scored a hell of a lot of goals. That's what 21 did.
Yes, he did. Before we move on to that, I do want to mention, I talked about, and this is very key for us, when it comes to sponsorship, when you start a small business like this is, Dave, it's just the 3 guys that we talk about are basically the 3 guys who are part of this business. Sure, we have partners. We mentioned Eggplant and Avi Studios. We have those that support us. There's a Dasmo that does our cameras. But when it comes to actually spending money and title sponsorship, we didn't just go out and flail ourselves. In fact, we went to one. We waited for one company, and that's DKI Canada. There's a reason for it. They understand what we do. They understand where we want to go. And I certainly understand the kinds of people that we're dealing with, which are of the highest caliber. And here's an example. This is a tough story, but it also will tell you the kinds of people that we have got into business with. In Okotoks, Alberta, our good friend Jeff Stewart, who is a big part of DKI and a big part of the reason why we have been sponsored by DKI, he's part of the Okotoks Minor Hockey Association in the town. It's, by the way, he's not from, that he moved to. But this is why community becomes important. The devastation of Las Vegas, I was a little concerned, Dave, when I saw that it was number 1, Las Vegas, number 2, country music, because there's 2 things that people in Alberta love. It's both of those things. As it turns out, a woman by the name of Tara Rowe went down with her husband for his birthday. She said because she's going because he loves country music. They become separated. He can't find her. She never comes back. They have 2 young boys in grade 1 and grade 2. It's a really hard story. Enter Jeff Stewart, a part of DKI, who is also acting member and president of the Okotoks Hockey Minor Association. He joined CBC Radio in Alberta, and here's a brief interview with what he is doing for that family. Again, a tough story, but an important one.
One of the things we did immediately was obviously keep the boys registered in hockey, but we refunded them the money for the registration and paid for it by a couple of silent donations. And the one that we just thought might help out when they're in town is setting up a little bit of a money drive for food and what that is about is just we know it's a hard time and sometimes you don't feel like making a meal or preparing lunches and those type of things. So we talked to our good friends over at Sobeys here in Okotoks and raise money through Okotoks Minor Hockey, and that way we're able to have lunches set up and prepared and delivered to the school for Tara's boys and then have some meals. As you know, when these are tough times and people are showing up at the house and just family getting together in those important times like that, we want to be able to just say, here's a tray of food or here's some ribs and stuff from the deli. So sometimes it's those little things, isn't it? You actually just called up the local owner of the Sobeys and asked if he could help? Yeah, it was immediately the next day I called Dave actually at Sobeys here in town, and he's been a great supporter of Okotoks Minor Hockey as well. Tremendous supporter, to say the least. And we just quickly, the 2 of us stopped and put that together, and then we just started rallying with our group at Okotoks Minor Hockey, and it's been really nice to see the community stepping up like that and donating to GoFundMe and obviously we want to keep some privacy.
That is really remarkable. So that's basically what they did. He decided to go to Sobeys, make sure there was food for the kids, refunded the money in hockey, and then make sure that whenever they want to play hockey, it's paid for. That's who DKI is. That's who Jeff Stewart is.
Yeah, just class act all the way around.
You're watching rawmike.richards.com. You've either also downloaded the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, however you happen to get it. Maybe it's TuneIn, but you'll be thrilled to know that Dennis Marouk is going to join us in studio. He's just written his book. There is certainly lots to talk about in a life that is very, very, let's just say, well-traveled. And we'll get the details after this. In studio on rawmike.richards.com, Dennis Marouk.
In a big man's game, Dennis Marouk had to contend with skeptics, and his answers always came on the ice, dazzling all parties concerned with his spectacular play. He became an offensive hurricane in junior hockey with the London Knights, but still was chosen only 21st back in the 1975 NHL draft. The California Golden Seals secured his rights, where the Fu Manchu mustache Marouk started his professional career. He became a fearsome opponent with a deft ability to steal pucks and explode down the ice on breakaways. There were few players in the league who engineered as many one-on-one scoring chances as Marouk. He was fleet of foot, could stick handle smoothly, and carried a wrist shot that packed some pop. His finest days in the NHL were spent with the Washington Capitals, where he twice scored 50 or more goals, and today only 8 players in history have equaled or surpassed his single-season point totals. Dennis finished his NHL career with the Minnesota North Stars in 1989, ending a stellar 16-year career. 2004 inductee, Dennis Marouk.
And there it is right there. Even though he said Marouk, and we're in studio, it's Marouk.
It's Marouk.
Yeah, it's Marouk.
Yeah.
That's what we always knew it as.
America. It's Marouk. Yeah.
And I'm sure there's been some other names, too, I imagine, that have been shouted out from time to time.
Yeah, we won't say that.
Yeah. Oh, so great to have you in studio.
Great.
I have a friend of mine, a firefighter. His name, the nickname, the Beaver Man.
The Beaver Man.
And he said, you're having number 21? 21's coming in studio? 21 is coming in studio. And that's why, look, depending on where people follow someone's career, like the Capitals, to me, of my age group, that's how I see you. But there'd be people in Minnesota who would say, hold on, wait a minute.
Yeah, he was a North Star.
Yeah, I mean,
North Star, number 9.
So what do you get the most when someone comes across your path? Or is it split?
They say, who are you? You know?
Please.
No, it's pretty much the Washington Capitals, with the Fu Manchu and stuff like that. Yeah, so that was kind of. Yeah, it's the the 50-goal season, the 60-goal season. I think that was the big thing. Yeah, so it's pretty much been Washington. Yeah.
Well, hockey is only really when you look at what you have written is only really part of the story. It's the story that we know. But in talking to those who have written books about their lives, it's cathartic. There's a point where I think there's something that you obviously have within your soul that you want to tell a story. Like it's not so much about look what I have done. I think for people sometimes it's like, here's a journey and maybe one that you don't know about. I don't know if there's lessons to be learned. So I look at you and think, there's no reason you had to write a book. There's no reason we had to have these stories. But for you, why the book?
Well, yeah, that's a good question, really. And when I moved back, 8-9 years ago, back to Toronto,
because you are a Toronto boy, by the way.
Yeah, I'm a Toronto boy, Rexdale boy. I guess what you call it. They call it Rexdale now at Etobicoke. But I got meeting with a few people, and a few years ago, I met with Ken and some other about talking about stories about my life and hockey and all that. And he said, "This would be a great book." And I go, well, wait a minute here. I never even thought about it. So, and then I started thinking back to things, my life as a child growing up and the size. I wasn't a very big guy and had to deal with. I got traded when I was 16 years old and wanted to play for the Toronto Marlies and had to leave Toronto. And I didn't want to leave Toronto. I wanted to stay home, my friends, and didn't want to leave family. So I really quit and told them to make another deal. But 2 weeks before camp, I decided to go, and so I had to leave family. And there's a lot of twists, a lot of things that I had to deal with as a professional athlete, not only as a young player at 15, 16 years old.
Oh,
I had to
you're
go leave home and go live with another family that I knew nothing about. So school faltered a little bit. I didn't want to go to school. I didn't know anybody in London besides my teammates, who my first year just got to know them. And so it was a struggle right from there. And then I was the most valuable player and junior. Had some great stats and stuff, and thought at 18 I was going to get drafted by the NHL.
And how big are you at this point? As
I'm 5'8" and 175, but that's what I played at.
Right.
And junior I was 5'8", 160. But it was a little different. But and that's how. And I didn't get drafted. And then next year, and then the following year, the draft, I got drafted by California Golden Seals. And right into that, no contract. Boom Boom Jeffron was my agent, and.
Because representation at that time isn't what the kids are like. You talk to a school kid, Dennis, and they're like, "Well, I guess against the cap." I go, "Against the cap? You know what that means? You're 10 years old against the cap." They have an understanding of what these what a bridge contract is. They understand all these numbers. Back then, it's like some guys didn't have representation.
No, exactly. So we went in, and they tried to, and I think the reason why I didn't get drafted in the first round and like that was. Size, basically, sure. and then went in and tried to sign a contract, and at that time the general manager president of the Oakland California Golden Seals, that wasn't Charlie. It was Mel Swig was the owner. Late Munson Campbell was the president, and Bill McQuarrie was the general manager. So, and they just said, "Well, Dennis, you're going to go to the minors for a couple of years and get a little stronger and see what happens." And Boom Boom goes, and he goes, "My Denny, he played no junior. He scored a lot of goals for your team. You signed contract today." And like Boom Boom told me not to say anything in the meeting, and I just kind of was listening, kind of chuckling a little bit. And so there was no contract, and I was a little frustrated. And I said, "Here we go again. Got to show him." So our first exhibition game, we played against Marcel Dion, LA Kings. I had a couple goals, and I was the first star, and they tapped me on back in the shoulder, and they go, "We're going to go get signed to your contract." So I called Boom Boom and all that. So it's always, and since that, it's always been a struggle on the ice. I mean, I had to change my game a little bit to be more aggressive, to get some room. I knew I could score. I knew I could do all that kind of stuff. So that happened. And then that's what happened. I ended up playing 14 years.
And when you read this book, that's a theme throughout your career.
Right.
That happened every single stage of the career, even to the point where the Washington Capitals decide to deal you later, and it's like, why the hell are you dealing the best player on the team?
Score.
Or moving from center to wing.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, there was no respect there, and it's something that you earned throughout your 14 years.
Yeah, so, is the book about my life not being treated properly or going through some tough times?
You worked for everything you got.
I worked for everything I got. Yeah. And then, and then all of a sudden, you're dealing with, the All-Star game was great, the 2 All-Star games and all that. And then you go through a time where things are going real, kind of your prime. You're 27 and the 50-goal season, the 60-goal. Even though the team is not real successful, we started to get better with that trade with the Rod Langway and Brian England and Doug Jarvis coming. We had to give up Brian Walter and Rick Green, but that changed the whole chemistry of the team, and it got better. But then all of a sudden, boom, I'm traded to Minnesota, and I go, wait a minute here. I just had what did I do wrong?
No, that was David Poyle, right? Or was that Brian Murray?
Brian Murray was Brian Murray and David. But what happened there is I think they made a decision. Bobby Carpenter was there, and it was either Bobby and I. One of us is not going to play, and so I think that's what happened. They ended up letting go the older guy, and Bobby was going to play. So I had to deal with that, and then got to Minnesota. I didn't play much there. I was a third, fourth line player, 60, 70 points on third, fourth line, and we made the playoffs. We had a good team, and then all of a sudden, I shattered my kneecap, didn't come back, and had to retire after playing 14 years. Then it was the story after.
Yeah, and we'll get to that.
Yeah, okay.
We'll get to that in a bit. When we're thinking of you and the people that have told me you got to talk to this guy, to this guy, and I'm pretty good friends with a lot of the people at ECW, so I was thrilled to have you come in studio and join us. but the Fu Manchu.
Yeah.
I mean, your hockey card was the talk of my childhood. Okay,
Look at the book, yeah.
and you see
book,
it on the actual book, and if you don't recognize that, then you haven't been paying attention in the 1980s. So how did that actually come about that you decided that, you know what, this is the look I'm going to go with? Because outside of Lanny McDonald, I'm a Winnipeg Jets fan, so Paul McLean had the big mustache, but you had an intimidating Fu Manchu where it looked like you were pissed off all the time. What
Maybe you were.
Maybe
I had to to survive. Our hockey at that time was survival. It's not survival now, but with the cross-checking, spearing, slashing, and all that, we had that, and I had to. And no, it wasn't. I grew it because I had hair when I was 14.
Yeah.
So, but it's in a book, and there was a relief pitcher for Kansas City Royals, and Al Habrowski.
Okay.
And the man Hungarian.
Yeah,
if you
the
watch him
Hungarian.
on the mound there,
absolutely.
he'd go crazy, and he had the Fu, and I go, I like that. So, and that's kind of where I just kept it growing. I said, how do I do it? So I had to grow the goatee and then
Because you
shave
even
it.
have instructions in there how you
exactly.
So hold on. So the birth of that really comes from El Raboski?
Yeah, the Fu Manchu.
Okay,
Yeah,
I never knew that.
Not from just growing and all that. And I said, he's crazy, and so I said, yeah, why not do it? So that's kind of how that's really did start. Yeah.
We're in conversation with Dennis Marouk here on rawmike.richards.com. You're watching live as well on the dedicated YouTube channel or on the rawmike.richards.com site itself. We're thrilled to have him here in the DKI studios. And as you mentioned, Dennis, for a lot of players, we just assume that it's all champagne and caviar, that you lived the high life, that you had everything going for you, and people are like shocked to hear that at some point that maybe it isn't all rainbows and Skittles at the end of it, that people do have challenges. And for you, when did you feel like challenges off ice entered your life?
Oh, geez, right after, I guess, I have to say it's part of my fault to not really get myself ready for, the time when I was going to retire, what I was going to move into. And when I did get out, during that time, we were kind of told that doors are going to open. You're a professional athlete. You're going to, once you retire, you'll be able to walk into a job, no problem. And I think at that time, my doors were like, not even a quarter of an inch, and I didn't want to get back in hockey. I stayed involved in some business, different jobs, and it just got things just started going south right from then. I didn't know where.
How old are you at this point?
I'm 60. I'll be 62.
No, sorry. At the point of retirement when you're making these decisions.
34, 35.
So 34, 35 is
you still got life. Yeah,
lots
of life.
Yeah.
Like, what are you gonna do? And a lot of times the players during that time stayed involved with hockey, became a scout, and I didn't want to. I wanted to get away from it and
you sure
do
did.
something out and do with kids. And I did. I did some coaching. I did. I did a lot of different things. But it really was a struggle. I went through it, my first divorce, and things just and it wasn't matter. We didn't hate each other. Just things weren't going right, and I think it's partly where you become successful in your sport, and then now you get out and now what do I do? And the fear of failure, I think, comes into effect big time for me at that time. And I went from job to job and drinking and doing all that kind of stuff. And I was depressed. And I just got to a point when I was in Aspen, I just said, boy, this is it. I'm happy. I'm down. And I just started drinking heavily, got in my car, started calling people and telling them that this is it.
Yeah.
The men in my life. And thank God, I got tired driving, got to Utah where the canyons are, and I pulled over the side of the road, and I just fell asleep.
Yeah.
The sun woke me up. I got out of my car, walked around about 5 feet, and on the right side of it was the cliff. It was a matter of 5 feet. I would have been done. And I didn't want to do it that way. I was just going to Vegas. I was driving to Vegas to end my life. I was going crazy. I didn't know how to do it.
So you made that decision that you were going to end your life?
Oh yeah. I was done. And then, I talked to my kids on the phone and everything. They had the police looking for me and friends. And, I think back to it. I says, thank God I stopped and turned around because my daughter Sarah really helped me out. There's a lot in the book there.
Yeah.
We spoke pretty much every day, and after that, it was a long process. And I kind of, well, if I did go, my kids would be, I wouldn't see grandkids,
Sure.
All that, and so it just kind of went on, and I just started to turn. A little bit here or there, getting better. Start seeing the light, the big turn.
Is that the message? Because it's small steps after that.
No, definitely. Sorry, yeah, definitely. It's you've got to get to a point where you got to get to the bottom, rock bottom. When you get to the rock bottom, it's kind of like it's either it's done or something just clicks. And I think at that time when I woke up and walked over to that cliff, there was a click. I don't know what it was. I got my car turned back and went to Aspen. I had a job still and showered up. The police come knocked on my door and said, you Dennis Marook? I go, yeah. He said, well, everybody's worried. We've been trying to find you. We're worried about you. I says, well, I'm fine. I'm just getting ready to go to work. He said, okay, and left.
Yeah, you weren't the day before, though.
No, exactly. Like, it's just like, and then all of a sudden, I started going back. I went to work and started doing things. Still were going through a struggle, went through a second divorce, all that kind of stuff. And so I started getting into this, trying to turn things around, but I was starting, the failure part was coming in. I'm a good man. I know I've got good out there, and I tried to get involved with hockey a little bit, made some calls, and nothing happened. So I just kind of went, well, maybe I'll get involved with something else.
Right.
So I did some things in Aspen, and ended up moving back to Toronto. And then when I moved back to Toronto, things were tough still then, and then I didn't know what direction to go, and so I went right in the NHL alumni office and talked to them and said, well, what is there anything you can do? And they said, yeah, we'll get you involved in some events. And I started getting involved in events, start seeing people, start communicating, and starting to meet some new friends, and it just like, wow, this is pretty cool. I miss Toronto. I left here when I was 16, even though I came back to visit, but never lived here. So yeah.
Well, but see, there's also something too that as you live your life and as close as you become with teammates,
right?
But people always assume that you always end up being best friends. That's not always the case. It's not always the case that the people that you play with, you end up having like an emotional attachment to.
Right.
And so, in talking to Derek Sanderson, probably about 3 years ago, I said, so what is Bobby Orr to you? Was he just a player? Was he a teammate? Is he a friend? He goes, Bobby Orr saved my life. He goes, Bobby Orr saved my life.
Right.
He goes, I was sleeping on a park bench, and Bobby said, that's enough. You hope at some point that you did have a connection where teammates do come to the rescue, but did you not have that?
No, I didn't have. I had teammates, but I had nobody real close, that, like a family member, and the only one that I would say would be my daughter.
Right.
Yeah.
Sarah.
Yeah.
By the way, her birthday's coming up in 3
I know.
days. Don't forget. Okay.
I know. I already asked her the other day what she wanted for her birthday. She's still getting back to me. No, but I have my son. I kind of kept away from my son a little bit. He's older, and he was in college and going to school, and he was kind of disappointed, but he did know what was going on. But it was mainly Sarah. Really, throughout the years, when I struggled, I'd call her.
Yeah.
And and that's just the way it just has been going. Still, we talk a lot.
Yeah, and I hope that continues.
Yeah, that's definitely.
Let's get into some of these jobs, Dennis.
Okay.
And I still want to talk about your 60-goal season, but I want to talk about these jobs because Mike and I are big Hall & Oates fans.
Oh my.
Okay. I know they haven't really
done. This is a good story.
Yeah, exactly. It is. You worked for John Oates. So John Oates for about 2 years. How the hell did that come about, and what was that relationship about?
Did you see what he did there? He said, "So you work for Daryl Hall?" Because we were like, "Hall?
Yeah.
No. Oh, it's what? That's the lesser guy?
Short little John Hall, little short guy. No. As I say, in a furniture store, I worked in a furniture store. A friend of mine in Aspen owned it, and he asked me to manage his warehouse and all that. And I said, that's great, no problem. It's a nice job. So I call high-end furniture.
Sure.
Store because we deliver furniture to Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell and all that, and that's what we did, and that's how I met them too.
Yeah, that's nothing cheap.
And that's when you meet all those famous people. So, and I'm kind of like, didn't think I was famous. I played hockey and did
that's what I'm thinking.
thing.
If I go into a furniture store, I'm going, wait a minute.
John
Is it Dennis Marouk in the back lifting up a chair?
No.
Did that never happen?
No, not there.
Not an accident?
Not at all. No. So John Oates come in, and Amy would come in the store periodically, and then so John's one day, and my friend boss Paul, he come over to Paul, and Paul says, and John says, well, is there anybody in the store that can help me out? I got a 100-year-old farm machinery. They live in Woody Creek, up in Woody Creek, Colorado, and a nice farm, big area. And Paul goes, Dennis is free, he's single, he's strong, he'll go help you. So John Quonis introduced John and says, yeah, can you come over Wednesday night, kind of go through what I need to be done? I said, sure. So I went over there, and we ended up moving some machinery. And he says, do you much about landscaping, and do you much about yard? I says, yeah, had years ago, and I had a home and all that. He goes, well, will you mind, I had to fire my 3 Mexicans that were not doing a good job. And I said, well, I'm working. He said, no, you come anytime. Come after work. Come on the weekends. I'll leave a list of jobs to do in the door, and I'll leave you a check, or you just let me know how many hours you work. And that's what it was. So when we did, he come out the odd time and work with me. And I got to start talking. I wanted to talk about music. He wanted to talk about hockey. They all want to talk about hockey when they find out who you are.
Yeah.
And
I
want
that.
to, of course, I want to talk to him about his music, and they don't want to talk about music. They've done it, and I would have talked about hockey with him, and that's
so
how.
You think maybe if you got a tambourine, it's Hall and Oates and Marouk.
I've always loved music, and I always wanted to play guitar. So I took my first guitar lesson yesterday. So there we go. So I'm starting, but I was a rookie. I'm a rookie. And then so we just I did that for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, and then decided to move back home. He wasn't too happy. But that's how we met. And
good guy though. Good guy for the most part.
Oh yeah, great guy. Yeah, great little guy. I'm tall to him. Yeah, you're small. I was surprised. I go, you're John Oates. So yeah.
Now the second part of that, before you were talking about Goldie Hawn, and in the book it goes through how you went over to their place to set up some stuff. When Kate Hudson came over, you had conversations with Kurt Russell. Yeah. Now the reason I bring up Kurt Russell is here because he's in probably one of my favorite movies, Miracle, playing Herb Brooks, a guy that you actually played for in Minnesota.
Exactly.
When talking to Kurt and playing for Herb, when watching the movie, did you see any of Herb and Kurt? And
he did an excellent job. Knowing Mr. Herb Brooks and the family in Minnesota there, but he did, and it was just how we met. We delivered furniture, Goldie Hawn and Kurt, and they have 2 different homes right there. He's got a ranch, and then they got a nice Victorian home, and then so there was a little pub down where I lived that I'd go every Friday, and there's 2 guys playing guitar, and so I went there a little earlier one night, and the owner who we got to know and all that said there's a guy down at the end by the sitting on a table with a hat on, probably would like to talk to you. And I go, well, who is he? He says, well, no, you go to the bathroom and see who it is. Well, I kind of like
that's not a good lead-in.
No,
I'm probably saying no at this point, Dennis.
No, and I'm going, okay, well, it's kind of a long bar, and I walk down and I'm by, and he's got his head down, and I'm looking, and I'm going, I don't know. So I went to the bathroom, come back out, and I turn again. I go like, I said, excuse me, sir. And I looked up, there it was. And I said, hi, Mr. Russell. And he said, no, call me Kurt. He says, yeah, I know the owner told me about you, and blah, blah, blah. He said, sit down. And I said, all right. Sat down for a couple glasses of wine. We spoke for about an hour, a little over an hour. I think I said 3 words.
Really?
I think I said through all, and again, hockey meeting a famous actor. Okay, I want to talk to you about your business, your movies, and we talked about the movie, The Miracle, and all that kind of stuff. And I told him how great he was, and I knew Herb, and he went on and on. But of course, their son was a goalie who played junior at West, and
in the West,
and then he went in Division III college or whatever it was. But so we had a connection, and then I'm going, no, and it was just I was amazed by how interested he was about the game of hockey.
Yeah,
he says, you guys are unbelievable. And he just went, and I'm trying, well, let's stop and let's talk about the movie, you know, and all this. He says, no, it's just he got into all that. So that's how we met. And then, of course, she called me I was her hockey love.
Yeah.
Goalie when we go to the house and deliver. I got a big, huge frame picture of her and to my hockey love, goalie Han. And
but isn't it nice when that happens? Because there's people that you sort of watch on screen or you see on the ice, or they're rock stars, and you hope if you meet them at some point, wouldn't it be great? Is they're as good as in your head as they are in real life? And sometimes that's not the case. I met Kurt once at a baseball celebrity thing. And he was everything, if not better, just the same you thought. I thought that occasionally does the heart well. And it's so great that you bring that story up. And because quite honestly, it's a little refreshing in humankind when they are that nice.
It really is nice. And it was a great time. I met a lot of people out there, and a lot of musicians, a lot of actors and actresses,
But and Hunter S. Thompson comes into your life somehow? Am I reading this correct?
Oh yeah, yeah. He used to fall off the curb there, and at the Hotel Jerome. Yeah, he'd take him out.
Because it probably wasn't going to be the knitting club.
No. That's where I met Blake Hall, and it's a Hotel Jerome. Famous Jerome, and then that's where Hunter Thompson. And he goes, yeah, that's Hunter Thompson. All that. Next thing you're walking out, and there's a curb. And you forget that there's a curb to go down. He'd go boom, flying down. Well, might have had a few cocktails, but I mean, and it was just how you meet. I mean, it meet so many people in that area. But was it a place for me? I think it was fun. I liked the ski and all that, but it still was. I was going through the demons. I was still in a real situation right there. Yeah, so it was. It was maybe a escape for me, maybe things like that. I still was going through the failure process and about myself as a person. Yeah.
So at this point in Colorado, in Aspen in particular, did you feel that at some point, in order to move forward in your life, you had to get out of there? You had to leave?
Yes, I think that was part of it. I think I had to find something right, and I think it was a situation where my brother was living with a lady friend, and she was going through she had ovarian cancer, and she had a last treatment, and it was just she wanted to die at home, and so I was coming back and forth with Aspen, trying to help my brother out with that, and my dad was living here. He's getting older, so still alive. But I decided I just closed up shop in Aspen and came right here. So maybe that was a good sign to come back and be a little bit with the family, help out there. And since I got here, it just like I go, oh, geez, I miss the city. And things have, I've been in a relationship. I'm in a great relationship right now with a beautiful woman here in Toronto for a year now. Susan, she's great, and she's helped me out with a lot of things. So there it is. So Toronto's been a great place so far.
And so to her, Dennis Marouk is who? Who's Dennis Marouk to her?
She I asked her first what a hat trick was, and she had 2 goals and an assist. So and we did go skating a couple of times. No, she knows a little bit more now, and she never knew who I was as a hockey player. And when I got going involved with this book, mentioned to her about it, and she says, "Yeah, it's your call. It's who you are and what you want, and go ahead with your stories and go on that." So she's been really supportive, and it's been great.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Let's go back to some hockey. I just went through some of your head coaches. I ended up working with a lot of them. Gary Green I worked with at the NHL Network. Brian Murray I knew very well in Ottawa. And rest his soul, of course. Herb Brooks, Lauren Henning, Pierre Page, guys like that. Who is Dennis Marouk's favorite coach?
Brian Murray. I would say Brian. Well, Jack Evans, if you go back to my Bantam coach, my Bantam coach is probably, we all think about certain things, but I would say, getting in my first year of Jack Tex Evans, and then 3 years, but I would say for my playing ability and what I was known for, Brian Murray gave me the chance to do what I would did best, and that was to make plays and score goals. And so we had a couple good lines, and I played a lot. So I would say Brian Murray.
Yeah, and in those 2 back-to-back years, you score 110 goals. You go 50 and you go 60. In your book, a number of times you mentioned how you don't remember certain things, and you don't remember first goals, and you don't, because a lot of people, you'll sit there and you go, oh, I remember exactly where I was when I had a 5-point night or a 6-point night. What do you remember about your 60 goals, considering that you're one of 20 guys in the history of the game to actually do something like this?
I still don't remember how it was and how it happened. I think Kenny said it was April 4th, whatever, and dates, and I think the first making it to the NHL was a dream as a child, playing hockey, and no matter what team it was, and then scoring my first goal in Toronto in front of family and friends. Maple Leaf Gardens, I've always wanted to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I cheered kids growing up, Hockey Night Canada, always wanted. Even when I played in with California, Cleveland, and Washington, Minnesota, I wanted to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I tried to get traded to Toronto. Lou Nanny would not trade me. We're in the same division.
Yeah, North
Division.
Yeah,
why would you?
That's right.
Why would trade you? No, I wouldn't do that. No. So, so that's how it was. And so I've always cheered Toronto. I've always been. And today I still am. But in my heart's big in Washington because of those successful years.
And you mentioned it off the top a little bit. It's almost, I would say it's a trade of the decade, where the Capitals and Canadians get together in a multiplayer trade. They trade away one of your line mates in Ryan Walter. What went through your head at that time, considering that it did make the Capitals a team to be reckoned with later on in the 80s, but you were no longer there. You were no longer part of that. When you see like a 4-for-2 trade that it was, and it shook the foundation, what went through your head at that time?
Well, as I said a little bit earlier, when you make a trade like we had to do that. Our defense was not. We had some good players, but they just weren't competing against the other players in the league that were good. So we had to make a move. And when you get Rod Langway, Brian Engloom, Doug Jarvis, and Craig Locke, and then you're gonna have to give someone. Sure. And so it ended up Ryan was good, and Rick Green were both. Great players, and ended up going to Montreal, and they had great careers there. So, it's just what happened. But that really changed the whole outlook of the Washington Capitals. Then, of course, getting their draft picks and getting some good players. Sure. And look where they are today. Yeah.
Well, when you talk about the Toronto area, and for those that are listening and watching in the GTA that are of a certain age group, that you understand the moment that you mentioned Marlies, because for me as a kid, there was this progression you want to see. Now, my uncle, the late Gunnar Kinnear, so Gunnar was my uncle, and so I saw this thing through like the Markham Waxers, through the Markham program. So that's Mike Palmetier, right?
That's me. That's right.
So there you go, Markham, and then you see the Marlies are a Sunday afternoon,
right? 2:00,
right? They're a Sunday afternoon, Maple Leaf Gardens, and you are one step away from rubbing shoulders with Ron Ellis or Norm Allman or Dave Keon or whoever that happened to be. So if you're in this area, that's what you saw in your head. Every night that you went to bed, and if you're good enough to go through the juniors, and you're thinking, okay, here come the Marlies, and like, by the way, you're not going to get to play for the Marlies. You're going to London. Like for a kid, emotionally, it's as much as this day and age, they don't give a shit where they go. If I'm going to Windsor or I'm going to Kitchener or I go up to Thunder Bay, or if I'm going to get a scholarship at Ohio State, but we're talking, 1970s where there was a way to do it. You saw it in your head, and it's tough as a 16-year-old to all of a sudden realize that wasn't going to happen.
Well, I don't know if you read a part in there how I got traded. Mark Howe was drafted by London Knights, midget age. Right. Marty was already playing for the Marlies. So Colleen and Gordy wanted them both on the same team, not playing against each other. So at that time, London, I just won a scoring championship in Markham Waxers, Junior B. I beat Bruce Boudreau by 1 point. I had 10 points that last game, and he had 9.
Whoa!
And so I had a 2-1. He wrote in his book that I didn't pass him the puck. I scored. He didn't get a point, so I won. But he said that he lucked out because they offered Marlies offered Bruce Boudreau for Mark Howe, and Bill Long said no. He wanted me. Right. So that's what Bruce said. the great thing about the whole deal is he won the scoring, but he got traded and had to go play in London, and I got to play for the Marlies, which were a great team.
Sure.
And that's how I was going to a lacrosse game. I was a goalie in the Rexdale Warriors lacrosse, and Frank Bonella called me up and he says, "Can we meet?" And I said, "Sure." I thought I was to sign a contract to play for the Marlies because I just, I had played 8 games that year with the Marlies. 14, 15. And so I was so excited, and I got half my gear on, and I get in and meet him at a gas station. Momsen drove me, and I get in the car, and he looked at me, and we're sitting looking. He goes, "We just traded you."
Oh, boy.
Well, maybe I won't sob right now, but I just kind of like burst out, and I go, "What do you mean?"
At
Trade.
a gas station.
Trade.
At a gas station.
Yeah, 15 years old at a gas station, yeah.
No.
And I kind of went, and I come back in the car, and Mom said, "Why are you crying?" I said, I told her. I said, "I quit hockey." Yeah, and she goes, "Oh, well, we'll talk about it." And I said, No. I said, "It's not right." So that whole process, that's how it all, and it's in there. It's in the book too, and it's kind of the start of. I had to be a man at a young age that I didn't want to be.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be a 16-year-old, be a 17-year-old, and go through the 17, what everybody goes through, and it wasn't that way. I went through struggles from 16 to 19, big time, and I think that's really affected me in my life in general. That whole process, that 16 to 20, 21.
Sure.
They're very big years in your
Development.
life. Think about yourselves back then, what you were like and what you were doing, Well, sure, and your friends, yeah.
Well, Dennis, it's one of the things, actually, you sort of brought it up in that last conversation, talking about playing lacrosse, in that when I look at our 15, 16, and 17-year-olds, certainly with the advent of World Juniors, and the emphasis that we put on our kids to be that one sport kid, they're working, they're 12 months of the year, they're doing dryland training, they're playing spring hockey, they're playing summer hockey, and I think the guys that I grew up with, and again, different age group, but we played every sport there was.
Right.
I mean, if you look at Joe Newendike or Gary Roberts or whatever, but Doug Gilmore, the lacrosse was a big part of that. They played other sports, and that helps you, sort of figure out in life to work with others and have that. And now I'm thinking, what if we're getting kids now? From the age of 8 who told that they're gifted. They go to all these, even these schools that are sports-centric. And I'm thinking, do we get better hockey players? Because we may not get better people, Dennis.
Right. That's true. I mean, I think now the certain athletes, if they don't feel that they're doing that main sport year-round, they're falling behind. And they'll never catch up. I think that's the way it is today. I mean, and I think, is it right to do that? There's so much money in the game and so much money in sports. As a parent, you look at a child and you go, "Well, my little Johnny or little Susie's pretty damn good. We're going to push them. We're going to push them because they're going to have a great life. They're going to make lots of money if they make it to that level as a professional player." And I really think, and I think it really is, you need to go the other way. I really believe that you need to do other sports. They complement the main sport. It's all right to say when you're 14 and say, "Well, I'm going to decide I'm going to push more hockey or I'm going to push more baseball. I'll do a few other things." But right now, it's almost at a young age. They pick that one sport and boom, they go at it. 365 days.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is. I mean, there's so much money in the game that, you go, you're set for life.
What was a big salary to you back then? What was big money for you?
$300,000. My last 3 years was $300,000. That was the late 80, 82, 83, right, 85 to 88. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, and that was okay because I think Gretzky was making 900 or something like that. So my first year was 30. Yeah, so there you go.
Wow. Yeah. So looking at your stat page, so you retire around 1990-ish, right?
Right.
But there's a stat line underneath for the Lake Charles Ice Pirates.
No.
Where the hell are the Lake Charles Ice Pirates? And explain this to me.
Was it like the Ice
That was
Capades?
the Western Professional Hockey League.
Okay.
WPHL. I don't know if you heard about that league.
I
okay.
I know the.
It was in for a couple of years, and then I was in where was I? In Austin, Texas. I was in retired in Minneapolis, North Stars, and did went in Austin visit some relatives. So we had a golf course and the 19th hole, and I look over there and I see Blaine Stoughton.
Yep.
Remember Blaine Stoughton? Yeah, right.
Yep.
And I look over there, and so I walked over and I said, "Blaine, what are you doing?" He looked at me, he goes, "What are you doing here?" and he started talking. I said, I said, "I'm visiting relatives," and he goes, "Well, I'm involved with this league here, the Western Professional Hockey League with the Austin Ice Bats. I'm part owner and blah blah blah." He said, "Yeah." He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I've been coaching high school hockey in Minnesota, in Chaska, Minnesota." So he goes, "Well, would you be interested in doing a minor pro? They're looking for ex-NHL players to coach." I said, "Sure, let me know." And so he did call me. There was Lake Charles, and then there was Odessa.
Yeah.
Were the two teams that I went to see, offered the same money, and I just went like this. Heads,
sure.
Lake Charles, tails, Odessa. Just like that. I was gone. And I went, boom, Lake Charles. Uh-huh. So, and so I went down Lake Charles for a little bit, and then.
But did you end up playing?
I'm gonna get to that. Yeah, I gotta get to that one. So I went back, and I've been married, 21 years, and my first wife ex was nurse anesthetist. So if I said that right, gas passer, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And in the States they have anesthesiologist, the doctor, and then they have maybe 10, 12 nurse anesthetists. So that she had a great career going on, and so I was trying to set her up there, and had a place, and so when I came back after all it was set up, had a job for her and all that, and I came back and she said, we got talking. She goes, "Well, you go do your thing." She go, "You go do your thing, and I think I'm gonna stay here, and I'm situated here." She's kind of senior nurse nurse there, and I said, "Okay, I'll go do my thing." Well, that didn't work out too good, what I mean? So, I ended up getting divorced and go on there, and it wasn't. It was just it just went this way, and it's just like we didn't hate each other. It just for some reason wasn't right. It was tough for the kids, but they got over it. And then when I was down there coaching, I coached for a year and got involved with a relationship down there. And the lady was real close friends of the owner and felt that this was not the best thing to do. You be involved, blah, blah, blah. So he let me go hire another guy from out west, Bob Laux. And so I'm working there, living there in Lake Charles, and got married, and they had some suspensions and some injuries, and so a couple of guys I knew that I had brought in from Minnesota and all that said, "Why don't you come out to practice and be in one of our lines so we can do drills and stuff like that, so we're short bodies." I said, "All right." So I went and started skating, and coach goes, "You want to sign the contract?" I go, "What do you mean?" I said, "I'm 43 years old." He goes, "You're skating like you can, like these guys, you can play." I said, no. So I what I did was I had all, because I knew the guys, players, and we all got together in center ice. Listen, guys, I said, I'll sign a contract, but I'm really not going to really want to play. I said, I'll fill in a shift here or there. And I says, "That's your game. I've been there. I've done it. I'm taking ice time away from you young players that want to go on and go up the ladder." And they go, no, we want you to play. We want you to play. And I go, okay. So I ended up playing 6, 7 games, and didn't play a lot, but play a little bit. It was kind of, it was being, the names were great. Goat, and Fossil. Look at it, no teeth, and all the. I was just like, I go, yeah, well, let's see how far you go. That was kind of mine.
Yeah.
And I said, I can play. I can still play it. I'm 43. How old are you? And so it's kind of a good little adjustment, but it was okay, and that's what happened. Yeah. And then I went to Baton Rouge and coached there too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Now, back to the start with the SEALs and stuff like that. Were you ever tempted by the WHA?
was drafted by the Crusaders.
Exactly.
I think it was the same year,
but
third round or fifth round or something like that.
But some of the guys I've talked to, like I've talked to Brian Trache before, I've talked to Glenn Anderson, and the WHA was really up front with trying to steal young stars like yourself.
Oh yeah.
Like did you get that kind of temptation offer, suitcase style, to come play for them?
I guess the whole when that whole thing, as a child growing up, you don't play in the best league.
Sure.
We didn't know at that time much about the World Hockey, even though it was another league coming, it was starting and all that. But so to get drafted by an NHL team, having the opportunity to play in NHL, that was, as a young player, I think that was the first thing in mind. And I don't know if every young player was like that got drafted.
Well, I think that would be a common mindset. I mean, like I'm not sitting there waiting to I mean, even though I've known a couple of guys, the Toronto Toros,
right.
but that really, to say that they were the other professional team in Toronto
young guys
wasn't true.
Yeah, like Mark Napier and a bunch of other guys that were young went and played. Gretzky, started out and all that. So I think it's just a matter of and sometimes in a situation, money comes into play, right?
And sometimes they're offering
heavy money to famous Bobby Hull.
Yeah,
you look at these guys. I know I certainly didn't get offered a lot of money. So, but I don't. At that time, it wasn't money issue. It was the fact that I was 19 years old. I made $30,000 playing NHL, and I said, that's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
So even though our team was weak, I got an opportunity to sit and watch Bobby Orr, Phil Esposito, all these guys that I watched on TV. I'm on the ice with them. I'm going, this is pretty cool. Do you have
any of your old Golden Seals jerseys?
No,
gloves,
I've donated.
The white gloves,
I didn't get the white. I never wore the. If you look in the 75 Seals, we were teal blue.
Okay.
We had the teal blue. We didn't
over the green.
They changed from the green and gold and the white skates and all that. We had the teal blue, Pacific blue colors.
Sure.
And with the SCALS and it was kind of a weird color, but
it was.
it didn't matter to me. I was playing in NHL, and we could put purple or whatever color you want to put on it. I was playing as a child. I made it to the NHL, and I was able to show people, my peers, that I'm here to stay. Yeah.
So you're in a good place now. You look great.
Thank
Sounds
you.
like things are, I guess sometimes the word I would use is control. You seem like you have it on the rails. You know where you're going, know where you're at, and are surrounded by people who support that.
Right now, things have been great. The last 3 or 4 years, I've been doing a lot of different events here in Toronto. I do a lot for, the NHL alumni. I go out east with the hockey legends. Play games. Andrew Jackson Agency, who puts a lot of events on, I do with them. Of course, the NHL alum. And then I'll go to the States. I'll visit my grandkids and all that. As I said earlier, I got a great relationship with a woman here in Toronto who's made things a lot easier and happier for me. And I hope that continues on. Yeah, because things are good, and I'm not getting any younger. So, and I'm going to continue to keep playing. So, Toronto's been a great city for me, and hopefully things will keep getting better.
And if the guitar playing continues, it once again, Hall, Oates, and Maruk. I think it's a possibility.
Oates and Maruk. Wouldn't that be some
have to come little
jam session going on? Yeah, I'll have to work on my singing at first. I think. Yeah, I'll pick away, but no, it's all been good. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, you know what? Awesome meeting you. Awesome reading the book. We urge people out there on Amazon, also ECW Press. It looks like this, so it's very Washington Capital like color.
Sorry.
Even the background, the white with the red lettering. And
but I have to. Basically, the book is not a book like you read. An athlete that starts out writing your first chapter. I started playing hockey at 8 years old. If you read this first chapter, it's like, oh, he did this, he did that. So I kind of did it like James Patterson. I don't know. I read a lot of his books, so it kind of swirls back and forth.
Sure.
It starts out with a story, and then it gets into the hockey a little bit, and then it gets into some negative stuff and all that, and the positives and the negatives, all that kind of stuff. And then it ends up near the end of the last chapter where, of course, I did, which wasn't part of it, but I had open heart surgery. I ended last January. 4 valves were blocked, and now I'm on another challenge, and things are going great. I'm back skating. Everything's been super.
You know what I think I just realized? I think I am the Dennis Marouk of sports television and radio. I think I am. I look at it. It's like always trying to prove myself. People always giving me a hard time doing stuff. I'm like, just let me live. Let me.
That's right. Live is right.
I can't tell you what a great time it's been here in the studio. When Dave mentioned that you were coming in, I was like, okay, this is going to be not only informative but fun, and it's so great to see you doing so well.
Thank you.
I know that so Glenn Healy now is the president of the NHLPA. I know he's going to, or the alumni. He's going to do a great job.
Yes, I've heard that. Yes.
And by the way, the Leafs. Do you like what you're seeing with the Leafs? You're a Toronto boy.
What happened last night? I watched that game last night. No, and they were right. Babcock was right about that. Their team, they're skating fast. The Devils and the Leafs look flat. I mean, they really did look. But I think it's what I like. The game is a young game, fast game, and I like what Toronto's got. And I think they just got to keep getting stronger, and hopefully they can keep those players together. They were flat last night. There's no doubt about it. They didn't play like they did the other games. To get 6 goals on Anderson is kind of a shock too. So if they keep going, and Matthews is a good player, they got good young. I like to see them. I hope they get in the playoffs, and I hope they win the Stanley Cup. I'll be cheering for them.
Maybe Grapes would come on and say, "Hey, I'll tell you what we need, eh? We need Dennis Marouk there, 21 out there for Toronto. Then you get something done, eh? Learn something."
There you go. Perfect. Yeah, Toronto boy. That's right.
Join us tomorrow, robmcrichards.com. We got all the picks coming at you. What a great show. And remember to subscribe on YouTube.